Welcome to the Life Chat Podcast, seeking the truth with Derek Powell, navigating you through every Wednesday night. New topics ignite, join the journey, let's take flight. Bringing insights that change our view. Derek's voice, clear and true. Tune in each week, discover new light. Life Chat Podcast, reach a new height.
Welcome, everybody. Once again, the Life Chat Podcast. Thank you for joining the episode tonight. For the people that will be watching now live, for the people that will be watching later on YouTube, we are talking about grief and loss for the night. I know sometimes this can be like a touchy situation, a touchy subject, depending on how you look at it, what angle you take on it, and what it actually means to you, how much work you actually put in. But I know specifically for me, I don't do well with grief. I definitely don't do well with loss. But I've been working on it, and we've been moving forward with the situation and the subject. But for tonight, we have a very, very special guest contributor, Miss Sabrina Gordon, and I'm going to leave this up to the professional, Miss Sabrina Gordon, for the night. Yes, the professional, Miss Sabrina Gordon, for the night. So here we are. Screen to screen, can't stay face to face. But Miss Sabrina, could you give us a little information about who is Sabrina Gordon, and how does the topic, how do you relate to the topic? How does the topic relate to you?
Well, I'm a grateful recovering person, first off. And, when you said I'll leave it up to the professional, the only thing that I thought that I could be somewhat of a professional in might be loss. I guess like my story begins with loss. I was like given up for adoption at a very young age. I went through foster homes that like I thought that they were my new family, and then I had to go to another one. And so like I just continuously thought that like, I had lost them. Really, ultimately, I thought it was because I had done something wrong. As a toddler, I don't know how, but it was my fault. It was my fault. Why are they gone? Why are they gone? Why are they gone? And then, I was given up for adoption. So, you just have to kind of like let go of the life that you once knew at some point, right? And then deal with that loss or not. Because I feel like loss when it comes to somebody being adopted, it's like nobody wants to talk about it. Like you just lost everything that you knew up until 4.5 years old. Like I could have even lost my name. They could have renamed me. They had the option, but nobody talks about it. So you just kind of learn at a real early age to push stuff aside and keep going and not grieve.
So, all right, with that being said, as a child, it's like it's extremely difficult for a child to even understand, what that whole process feels like, or even understand why they're feeling the ways that they're feeling. So as we grow up, as we get a little older and mature, and we start to realize what these feelings, get more in touch with these feelings. Like, how have you come to terms with the loss, the feelings of loss? And what was the process for you? Because, you're not going to be the only one that goes through. We're not going to be the only people that go through these feelings.
Well, that's a big part of it. Knowing that, like, pretty much every single person in the world is going to deal with some sort of loss at some extent, whether it be loss of a loved one, loss of a career, loss of a relationship, and all of those things. You'll still go through somewhat of the same type of like grieving process. I had to learn the hard way. Anybody who knows me knows that I am the most stubborn human being. I don't really want to be, and I've gotten better. Let's say that. But the only reason why I've gotten better is because every lesson that I've learned only comes from being knocked upside the head. I mean, going straight headfirst into a brick wall. Um, because if you don't deal with that loss and grieve that situation, you can push it aside and keep on going, but it's going to show up later on in the worst possible ways when you least expect it, in ways that you would never think that it would be, like rearing its ugly head in. But so for a long time, I pushed it aside. I kept on going. I pushed it aside. I kept on going. I never dealt with anything. Um, so that would be like nobody talking about any sort of loss, or like, how are you dealing with this transition, or any sort of a conversation, just kind of like, all right, let's keep it going as a small child. And then I like lost my adopted family too, because I've been on my own since I was about a teenager. And so it was like, oh, okay. So I was given up on as like a real small child, and I had to deal with that loss. And then, in my teenage years, it was kind of like it happened all over again. So I've dealt with things alone for a long time, but like, thank God for His grace.
Wait,
I
I
got
wasn't.
married
Go
about
ahead.
24 years old, and then I lost my husband. Not like lost my husband in a divorce, but like uh, lost my husband as a direct relation to alcoholism. That was so hard. When I lost him, I actually had lost my children, my house, and my husband all in the same week. So when I say I'm a professional, I wish I wasn't. And I pushed it aside and I kept on going because I couldn't do anything else but that. I did end up in the emergency room in Wilmington Hospital, because I couldn't get the idea of ending my own life out of my head, because I couldn't understand, like, how was I left here this way? Like, denial was not straight out the gate with that. Anger was like immediate. Immediate. I was so fucking, can I cuss on this?
You already did. Go ahead, do what you do.
Well,
Yes, yes,
uh,
yes.
sorry, so I was so fucking angry. I was like, how am I left with this? How does he get the convenience of dying? No kidding. Um, and what am I going to do? And the only thing that I could think of was ending my life so that I didn't have to deal with it. And then I like go into the emergency room and I'm like, hey, I can't get the idea of killing myself out of my head. And my children need me. So like, I can't do that. So I need help. And I went into Meadowood for like a week. They didn't do shit. I came out, I went to therapist twice a week. I was on like tons of medication to try and like get the anxiety and panic out of my body. But like at the end of the day, all I really did was push it aside and keep on going. I had to get an apartment because now I'm homeless. I had to get my children back because they had to go separate ways. So it was never really like, oh, let me really tap into how I feel. It was more so like, let's get this out of the way and keep on going. And that's how I learned to deal with it for the most of my life, until it slaps you in the face. And then you're like, dang, what the fuck am I going to do with this? Like a heroin addiction.
I was waiting for the addiction part to come in, because
Mm-hmm.
as being a recovering addict, being recovering people,
Mm-hmm.
like grief and loss is, our only. Let me say me. My initial way of coping with it or medicating is with, self-medicating, which was using a substance, which whether it be
Mm-hmm.
alcohol or cocaine. Those are my go-to, alcohol and
Mm-hmm.
smoking crack. So did you find any relief, since you mentioned the addiction part? Did you find any relief? Was there relief there, or did it just escalate? Did it
No, of course
build?
there's relief there, until what? Until there's not, until you fuck up your life so much that who gives a shit about that? now we got this right here and now. No, yes, at the time I like binge drank alcoholically for about 12 years prior to a heroin addiction.
All right, but I'm just saying I asked that question because some people um that may not consider themselves to be an addict or may not even be addicts, because grief and loss, people that don't use are going to go through grief and loss. We're all going to go through grief and loss regardless.
Well, I binge drank for
But
12 years, never thinking that I had a problem, never thinking that I was masking anything, never thinking that I was like drinking as a result of it, right? I was just kind of like having a good time, or it was the only thing that got rid of the anxiety that I felt, the uncomfortability, right? Until, like I said, everything makes your life so uncomfortable that you could either continue doing that or choose something different. But no, I mean, sure, it's a solution at the time, if that's what you want to call it.
yeah, the immediate, like initially, that's it. It's just initially. There's going
Initially,
to be
and
some
so
type
now
of relief.
you've gone through all of those things that have shown us that ultimately it's going to destroy your life after, many experiences. And then we come to now, and I'm sure, or I think you probably are at this place where it's like, you know better, you should probably do better. So if I kind of have learned a little bit of a different way to deal with it, like sitting with self, and no matter how hard it hurts, like, fuck it, let it hurt, because I would rather hurt right now than to hurt continuously, for
For the
however
duration. For the
long.
duration.
Yeah, for the duration, and or substitute this, that, or the third, cause 1,000 more problems in my life, etc., etc.
And that's what definitely happens. Compiling stuff, just compiling on top of each other, stacking stuff up. And the assumption is, I'm not hurting anybody but me, which is a total lie. No,
I thought that way.
yeah,
I thought that way
always
for
that's the
for
assumption.
like ever.
That's the assumption
You
until
want
it's
to
brought to
know?
your
You
attention.
want to know? I thought that way until I started regaining relationships with my children that I lost my relationships with them, as a result of trying to substitute for loss, right? One of those things where, like, yeah, it definitely makes your whole life worse. But I thought that I wasn't hurting anybody else until I had to, like, really see their pain.
And what do you mean? What do you mean when you say see
Like,
their pain?
well, when you regain relationships with people and you talk to them and you um, have conversations with them, and then you have understandings of how they felt, um, you're able to really, see how they have felt. Well, for me, it's like, if you have this deep rooted, like, nobody cares anyway, you're kind of always going to think that you're only hurting yourself because nobody else is going to be affected by what I do.
And that's just your belief. That's not actual. That's not a fact. That's just
No,
your
no,
belief.
no, I don't think that it's fact by any means now. By any
I'm not
means.
saying. I'm just mentioning. I'm just putting it out there for other people. That might
Yes,
have
it
those
was
same
it was
thoughts.
my belief, but it was like it was reinforced my whole life.
But
So it
okay, so
reinforced belief, I
you
guess.
re, you
It's not
reinforced it,
something that
right?
I just like created. What? No, circumstances of my life reinforced that.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
I wanted to get into the not so much the definition, but um, you know, being going through situations for years at a time. We always hear the different stages of grief.
Mhm.
The denial and whatever the other four are. I
Mhm.
forgot the order of them, but um, and I think we agreed earlier, there's not really a specific order that they come in, but there are different stages of grief. Um, so
Yes.
with I know denial is one of the
First.
big ones for
Well, it's
me.
supposed to be.
They normally rank denial as number one. I know that.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
know for me, denial it was always a big thing for me because I could never like just accept or just deal with something that just hurt me, like crushed me, and actually believe that it actually happened to me. You know, especially when it comes to like sometimes a lot of times the time and this, the time is always off. You know, especially like not right now. You know, that whole type of thing. So my reason for saying that was, is there a specific um uh part of the grief process that you dealt with that you're still dealing with from back then? Because I say that because I always talk about the death of my mother. I never fully grieved the death of
Mm-hmm.
my mother. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so the denial part was always lingering around for me. You know, so and that was like the longest I had to deal with that for a long time between that and anger. So that's why
Yeah.
I'm asking: is there a specific part of the grief process that you held on to that's like that still grabs you at times? Have you recognized that?
Yeah. Um, I still get angry. I still get angry. I got angry for a long time. Um, so I have it here since we kind of had mentioned it. It goes like denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and of course acceptance last, right?
Acceptance.
Of course last. But I don't think for me denial was ever a matter of like, oh, I can't believe this is happening and I'm just going to kind of like, think that way in my mind. I don't think ever. I don't want to say I don't think that really denial was like in the only thing that I was in denial about like for a long time. No, I don't think denial. It hit me so upside my head that there was never a matter of like, oh no, this can't be happening, or like, let me pretend like it's not happening, or I definitely push things out of the way,
I'm glad you said the pretend
or
part, but go ahead.
or yeah, or like cover it with something else. But there was no denying it. There was no
No matter.
there was no denying it, right? I can't go through denial. I lose my husband, my house, and my kids all in the same week. I can't be in denial when my daughter's father overdosed when I was 2 years clean, and he was missing for 5 days. Then we found out like that he had passed. So like there was no. It was. I don't think there was a denial. But I stayed very angry and I stayed very depressed. Um, the only bargaining that I ever could consider myself having done um, would be like with myself.
You mean?
Um,
What do you mean by that when
Bargaining
you
with
said bargaining
myself.
with yourself? Yeah.
Oh, like just self motivating myself.
If
I like to give
if
myself an advantage. Like, well, if you can, you know, get through if you can get through this, you could get through anything, like kind of just going through bargaining with myself. I'm my worst enemy. The only person I'm probably going to bargain with is me. Otherwise,
that
it's
sounded
pretty
more like a
straight up and
motive,
down.
like trying to motivate, like self motivate action.
Self-motivating.
Like,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so
but
that's the only real thing, but acceptance is hard, and I don't think that like I had said earlier, I'm not sure that we go through these things in any order. And I know that I have uh, reconvened with each of them probably.
I know that the acceptance part, when we finally get to the point of accepting the loss and dealing with grief and all that, and we get to the part about acceptance, that takes some time. I don't see it happening like, you know, 3 weeks or 2 weeks from now, everything's hunky dory. I'm over it. I'm past it and everything. I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all. Because in my
Mhm.
opinion, if it's just my opinion now, just my opinion, don't jump on me. But if if you got over it that quick, probably didn't mean anything to you anyway. I mean, I'm serious. Maybe not. I'm not just talking about like
For sure.
relationships, anything. I mean, like your heart wasn't in it anyway. That's the way I
Hmm.
feel. Or
Hmm.
maybe there
I
was
agree.
something, some underlying issue that caused you to not really have the, the feelings, that those deep rooted feelings about anything. Whether it could be a loss of a relationship, it could be the loss of a. I don't like animals. I don't like
But
animals, but it could be the loss of an animal. I see people grieve over the loss of their animal. Like seriously, like
you just lost like
like
100 viewers. Okay, they're coming for
it'd be
you.
cool. I'm cool. I'm cool with that. I'm not. I'm cool with that. I didn't have 100 viewers anyway. But uh, so it could be anything. It could be loss of a job and grieve your career. Grieve over
Yeah.
losing your career. Anything. But um, I did want to say, like, in
I,
this recovery process, have you noticed the difference? Have you noticed the difference uh in dealing with grief or dealing with loss in the recovery process, and between the recovery process and back
and
then? Yeah,
yeah.
and not. Yeah. And what would that be? What does that look like for you? I know for me, I'm just going to speak for me one time, and I'll let you go, let you
No, go
handle.
ahead.
But I know for me now that I'm taking it a little more serious
Hmm.
than before. I actually talk to people now about certain things.
Hmm.
Whereas I would never. I always held stuff in all the time. I was a stuffer. I would stuff
Hmm.
everything, and then I would wonder why this little crease in my forehead was always real tight, because I was just always like angry basically with myself. Just hold because I'm
Hmm.
holding stuff in. But now it's
Yeah.
a lot easier for me to get things out. So for me, it's just about just throwing stuff to the wind and letting it be what it's going to be. So have you noticed
Hmm.
what is the process for you? Because you have a lot of, you have a lot of time. Yeah, let me rephrase
Yeah,
that.
I got
You have
clean
some
in
time under your belt.
2017. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what is the process? What does that process look like for you? Because I'm sure other people might want to know, how do they do it? How does she do it?
Well, when we lost Bella's dad, that was 6 years ago, so I was 2 years clean. Um, I guess by creating a village and allowing people in, and prior to that, always talking about the fact that like my daughter had been in foster care, and I was just like trying to get her out, and that was the one thing that would be unspeakable for me. Like it could be the worst thing. I probably could like maybe killing somebody wouldn't be as bad as losing your child to me. That's like the lowest of the low. As a mom. And so, I had always been real open and I built relationships with people, which is super important in recovery. And the only way that you're going to do that is allow yourself to be open and vulnerable. So I completely agree. It's not just talking about how you feel, but the benefits that come from that, right? Getting it out and then sharing it with other people who can relate with you or might actually show up for you. Imagine that. So when I had found, yeah, when I had found out, um, it was a crazy situation. A friend of mine knew before I did that he had been found in the streets of Wilmington, and she like came to my job to tell me face to face that that's what had happened after everybody, had known that he had been missing for that time. And in the time that I spoke with her and she was just coming to bring me coffee, like, how are you doing type of thing, I had gotten the call. But when she got there, she had told me that one of her previous clients had called her, like, what am I supposed to do? And she was like, how am I supposed to tell my friend this? Right? But she showed up. And that's incredible. And I went right to a meeting, my old home group, Bow Ties and Barrettes, 2:00 in the afternoon. Wish it was still around, but things happen.
Mm.
That place was the truth. And I went there. It was, if you know, you know, 2:00 in the afternoon. And so many people that loved me showed up there. And I wasn't allowed to like leave there by myself. And my sponsor had shown up. So she brought me to her house. It was like everybody was just kind of babysitting me, right? Which I was totally open to. I went and slept at an Oxford house for 2 days, even though I didn't live in one anymore, so that I wasn't
Safe
home by
environment.
myself.
Yeah, safe
Right.
environment.
Because I knew like I wasn't going to use there. It wasn't that I felt like I wanted to, but I don't know what just happened. Hmm.
Ooh, you broke it up.
Well, my whole camera system just shut off, so the screen behind my screen got blank. Look, there you go. See how it got much brighter?
You broke it.
We could have gone without the glare, right? Um, so everybody had shown up for me. I was at my sponsors. I went to a meeting after that. It was a celebration meeting, which was like, dang. And I hated having to share where I was at in a celebration of my friend's queen time, because it was just so sad. And it made so many people sad. And I was like, I didn't want to ruin it. But um, I talked to people, I went to meetings. Um, and here I'll tell you though, when I went through that loss, like I took on my friend's whole baby. She had to have hip surgery and like she couldn't really take care of her child. She was like 9 months old. And I took her for like months. Like she was mine. Brought her to daycare, took her home, and like, I substituted one for another. It was just somebody else's child, not drugs.
Gave you something. They gave you something else to focus on.
Correct.
Instead of having to deal with the situation like 100%. Give you something
Yeah,
else to
but so
focus
when
on.
you say that and you don't really like sit with self and focus on what you're going through and allow yourself to process that and go through those stages of grief, right? Which way they come and go. When you just focus on something else entirely and you don't allow yourself to go through that process, don't worry, it's coming back. And it's coming back hard.
I just want to put
And it
this up,
came
right?
back.
I just want to put this up. I'm sorry to cut, but I just want to put this up. We were talking about the light and the computer screen, and you said, and I mentioned that you broke it, and somebody said, you definitely broke it. That was Matt Davidson, so you definitely broke it. But
Mm-hmm.
also we had another comment from Hank Williams. Hank said, "I think the amount of trauma you've been through in life determines how you get over it and get through it."
For sure.
So, and that makes a lot of sense to me because if sometimes we hear people say, "I'm, whatever the situation is, I'm used to it. I'm used to it. I'm used to this happening. I'm used to that happening."
Mm-hmm.
So we become
Mm-hmm.
so used to something constantly like just beating at us or beating up
Mm-hmm.
on us, and we just that's the norm for us. Sometimes and people just seem to just move through it basically effortless. And
It's
it's like,
not
yeah, it's like
effortlessly.
seemingly. effortlessly.
Seemingly,
Because yeah,
seemingly
because that's what
effortlessly, but behind those closed doors, you got it fucked up, my friend.
you just had to get that in. All right.
Seemingly effortlessly. No, it's super difficult. No matter, here's the thing, no matter how much you've gone through, the only thing that really changes, um, it's hard, it gets easier, and then like I think it really gets easier because you know that you'll get through it, right? You know you'll get through it, so like you know that there's a end in sight. Um, I don't know, man. If you've gotten through everything that I've gotten through in the course of my life, I think I'm gonna be all right.
Especially now that you're already, moving ahead, moving
I'm
forward.
gonna be all right. So I mean, like for real, I really do think that I'm gonna be all right. So like, even though I might be in the midst of what feels like very depressive, very angry, I am I'm never hopeless.
Hope. Being
I'm
hopeless is
hopeless.
that's a lot of. It takes a lot of work to be hopeless. It takes a lot of work to be hopeless because it takes so much for you to just give up on everything and to give up on
I It
yourself.
does not take a lot of work for me to be hopeless, bud.
It takes
I've
a lot
been
of work.
suicidal. I've been suicidal for more of my life than I have not. But but when I was 2 years clean and we lost Bella's dad, I had like this what's that, like a aha moment, this epiphany. And it changed my entire perspective on life. And I was like, dang, with each day we have a new opportunity to change anything in our life right here, right now, today, that like maybe we didn't like from tomorrow. I mean, from yesterday.
That's right.
And which makes it not hopeless, right? Like as long as I have a breath in my lungs and I can open up my eyes and I can like put one foot in front of the other, I have a fighting chance. I'm not sticking heroin in my arm. I'm not, out there drinking and just like causing harm to myself. And I have a fighting chance. Not to say that there aren't times that I have felt like, how the heck am I going to get through this? But what do they say? Like I've gotten through 100% of everything I've gone through. So like I think our odds are pretty good. Yeah.
Understood.
Like you
Understood.
got
I
tired
just,
though.
but I think we just being, especially when you go through the addiction state. I always try to include the addiction
Hmm.
in the topics, no matter what the topic is. I always try to include it somewhere somehow because that's part of
Yeah.
my story. So going through just the addiction, the whole process of addiction is that's enough. But then we start piling stuff on top of that, and you make it through it. That's like, I think there's some trophies that need to be given out. That's like winning a championship. Honestly, even though we don't really, you know, we don't graduate it. We don't graduate from it. But just
No,
being
man, we
strong
get
enough to
trophies every
move
day.
through it and push through things and just keep pushing on a regular basis. It's like some
Yeah.
people just wouldn't understand, but it's definitely uphill. It's definitely a struggle. I'm gonna say uphill.
It
I'm not
is
gonna
a
say uphill struggle,
struggle.
but it's definitely a
It
struggle.
is a struggle. I don't know, like my motto is one foot in front of the other despite how you feel. So, we could feel depressed, we could feel angry, we could feel lonely, sad, all of those pained, like, grief and loss are painful. That's why everybody wants to just kind of like push it aside and not, and not face it. But like I said, it always comes back. And I don't want to be triggered by every little tiny thing anymore in my life to have it bring about some sort of like sadness or reminder of loss or loneliness or like anything like that. And I feel like for me personally, the only way that I've kind of like lessened what's that, like sensitivity or like triggers has been to like actually deal, you know, deal with whatever deal with whatever it was. How did it make you feel? What can you do about that? That's, you know, like um positive instead of a negative. I've ruined a good portion of my life not dealing with any sort of grief or loss.
And not dealing with it.
Yeah, by not dealing with it. Yes, by
Yes.
not wanting to face it, by substituting it because of that. Yeah, I've ruined a vast portion of my life by not facing it. Hmm.
So it's not. So it wasn't just um, making decisions based on how you felt, but it was more just pushing it under the sweeping it under the rug, and then what happened after that?
What happened after
Build
I pushed it under the rug?
right, just
Are you
build up,
asking me
compound.
for real?
Yes.
Well, I mean, if I binge drank for 12 years after the loss of my husband, um, I don't know. I think it caused my mental health and my anxiety to be out of control. And then I didn't really realize that until many years later. So I just kind of like continued this awful cycle. Um, I don't like dealing with loss, so I try not to get close to people. So there's a lot of things that come out of not, you know, not facing it. Um, part of a big part of me becoming a heroin addict had to do with so like when I lost my children when my husband died, some of them didn't come back. And I made decisions for like specifically my daughter that I thought was like for her best interest to stay with my in-laws where she would be cared for in, you know, the best of ways. And I couldn't deal with that loss. I couldn't deal with that loss to the extent that that it was too hard to talk to her. She was a child. It was too hard for me to talk to my child, so I didn't. It was too hard for me to like spend time with her, so I didn't. And not dealing with that loss costed me my entire relationship with her, 10 years of our lives not um having any, you know, contact really. And I'm grateful that we do now. I know that. But that's only because of the process of recovery and like deciding to do something different. And with deciding to do different, I like face my shit now.
So it's basically that's a repaired relationship that
It's taking place. It
yeah.
is
Well, yeah.
being repaired. Hmm. Yeah, it's
It's a,
not
it's a
easy.
process, just like
But I'd
anything
rather
else. It's a
face
process.
it than not. That's the thing. I would rather face it than not. I would rather deal with whatever pain is of the here or now than all of the many things that can come from not dealing with it. Is it
And
painful? Yes.
having a better understanding of yourself and having a clear head. You know, like sometimes we do things or say things we don't even have an understanding of what we're talking. But
Correct.
being in the process of recovery and being clear headed, now. Gives you a better opportunity to be able to express yourself in a better way, and also listen. I think a lot of times that's where we fall short, is we want to say everything. We don't want to take in anything sometimes. And like you said earlier, to be able to understand how they feel, how the other person feels
Mm-hmm.
in the matter. But I do have one more question for you before we wrap up.
Mm-hmm.
And I always try to throw this in every episode. There may be somebody that might be struggling right now, right? Struggling with this topic right now, grief and loss. No matter what the situation, there's a grief and loss. What do you have anything that you would, any advice that you would have to anybody that's going through grief and loss right now, that might feel like they have nowhere to turn? That might feel like, they might not really understand why they feel the way they feel. Do you have anything to offer right now for anybody that might be going through a situation?
God's my ultimate answer. God's my ultimate answer. If you feel so alone and you're not sure which way to turn, number one, know that you can always go there. And building like my own personal relationship with God has been super helpful for me. Number one. Number two, know that you can always reach out, especially if you are in this space of recovery. Like, definitely go to a meeting, definitely call your sponsor, definitely reach out to folks, surround yourself with the people that you've built a network with, which is part of like why having a network and being in service and like cultivating those relationships with folks, having a home group. They hear you share the same shit every week, maybe, and that's fine because they get to know what's going on with you. And then you start to, be able to be vulnerable, have a level of like intimacy with folks where you can actually allow people in. And don't give up. Don't give up. Just hold on. Just hold on. Yeah, one foot in front of the other, despite how you feel, no matter how sad, no matter how hopeless. That's about it, and it has saved me on more days than I'd like to even say. Yeah, one foot in front of the other.
One foot in front of the other. Well, I got some big feet. I don't want to trip myself, but I just had to put that in there.
Anything works.
Understood. Okay, but I just wanted to thank you for being on for the night, Sabrina.
Thanks.
Thank everybody else for people that watched for the night and people that are going to watch on YouTube later on. Just keep in mind that you're not alone. We do recover. Recovery is possible. Thanks for joining us tonight on Life Chat Podcast. Also, I just had to throw it in there, general purposes. Please don't forget to subscribe. Life Chat Podcast on YouTube. Look for the little purple logo. Thank you for joining us once again. Everybody be blessed. Good night.
Welcome to the Life Chat Podcast, seeking the truth with Derek Powell, navigating you through. Every Wednesday night, new topics ignite. Join the journey, let's take flight. Bringing insights that change our view. Derek's voice, clear and true. Tune in each week, discover new light. Life Chat Podcast, reach a new height.